in to the Bear Down Buzz podcast. Myself, Eli, as always, joined by Joe and Isaac. Fellas, let's just get right into it. The embarrassing loss right in the final moments of the game to the Washington Commanders, a final score of 18-15, in which the Bears put up a decent defensive performance throughout this matchup. Just couldn't get it finished up there in the end. But there are a lot of storylines with this one, so I will start with you, Joe. Just give me your overall thoughts on this bad loss to this Commanders team.
Okay, so let's start here. I don't think we deserve to win this game. They played terrible on offense the whole game. Um, I'm they played 3 quarters. 3 quarters they played bad on offense. This fourth quarter, somehow, Phil Williams figured something out and was able to drive the Bears down the field twice. They should have scored twice, 2 touchdowns, but we had a dumb play call to Doug Kramer uh, for a touchdown that didn't happen. He fumbled. Now, I understand why they did that. I get it, but it's the wrong time. Don't do that when you're down by 5, trying to score a touchdown, take the lead. You do that when you're up 14, up 20, and that it doesn't matter if he fumbles. But don't do that then. It just it's stupid. It's really stupid. Um, but yeah, the offense played terrible. Uh, for 3.5 quarters. The defense played really good for 59 minutes. Um, and then, like always, Eberflus somehow messes the game up in the final minutes when we're not supposed to lose. Now, I'm gonna bring this up now just so we don't pass it over. This is the fourth game in Eberflus's coaching career with the Bears that the Bears have had a 90% chance or higher winning percentage going into the fourth quarter. Well, in the fourth quarter at some point, they've lost. The other 3 games, because everyone remembers the Denver loss last year, when they were up 28-7 in the fourth quarter. They somehow lost that game to a terrible Denver team that just had 70 points scored on them the week before. Then Detroit in that at Detroit in 2023 when not Bayless Jones, but Tyler Scott dropped that pass that would have sealed the game for the Bears. Then that Cleveland game when Matty Eberflus made another dumb decision and had Justin Jones drop in the coverage, which made no sense at all. And then this week when Matty Eberflus screwed the Bears twice. Um, the second one really wasn't his. Like it is his fault, but isn't his fault. The first egregious play call was more his fault when they didn't have anybody covering the sidelines on that 2nd and 10 play when they let McLaurin get a free 13 yards. We'll talk about that more in a bit, but yeah, um, those are the worst games of Eberflus's career and probably some of the worst games I've ever seen the Bears play. I don't understand how he still has a job. Like we've talked about it earlier in the season. Was he on the hot seat or not? At some point we all agreed that he wasn't. Like after the last 3 weeks, I think we agreed that he wasn't. Now that's back on the table, bro, guys. He's not a good coach. He just isn't a good coach. Uh, he's a good DC. Is not a good kind of coach. He hasn't shown consistently that he can be a good head coach. He wins against bad teams. And he goes against any good team or any team with an above 500 record. He craps himself. He shits the bed and they lose. Um, but how about you, Isaac? What are your general thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I'll go on a little rant here. It's going to be composed of 3 parts. So first, it's Matt Eberflus, right? To add on to everything that Joe was saying, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I'm so done with Eberflus, and I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think the Bears will ever be playoff contenders with Matt Eberflus as a head coach. I just don't because it's the same stuff over and over again. Where instead of taking accountability and saying, you know what, guys, this was on me. I'm gonna work on this and make sure this doesn't happen again. He's blaming it on the execution of the players, right? After the press conference, when they were asking him about that Terry McLaurin 13-yard gain, he was saying, it doesn't really matter. It's always going to come down to that last play. that last play would have never happened if you called a better game plan at the end of that game. If you didn't, if you just guarded the sideline better and make Daniels throw to the middle of the field, he probably would have never had that opportunity to throw the Hail Mary. And then even with that opportunity to throw the Hail Mary, he had four rushers and most of them were like backups. I don't even know why. Like I'm pretty sure I know Montez Sweat wasn't in. I'm pretty sure Javon Dexter wasn't in, and he had TJ Edwards as a spy for some reason. Like it just doesn't make sense. And yes, like Bear fans were saying that there was a lot of holding going on with the pass rushers, and I agree. Like that should have been called, and the refs didn't call it. But we can't control that aspect of the game. And for a head coach to say that it doesn't really matter, that to me is a fireable offense. I mean, the Bears have a history of not firing their coaches midseason, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to fire Matt Eberflus midseason because they're probably going to give him one last opportunity to see if he could beat the divisional opponents that are going to be coming up in the schedule. But at the end of the season, I just think that he shouldn't be the head coach anymore. And um, Bears beat reporter um, Dan Wilder, or I don't know how.
Leader
Ritter, yeah,
and
there you go.
Wheeler.
Thank you. He was saying that after the game in the locker room, he felt that what Eberflus was telling the team was what he was trying to be positive, but it was registering as very tone deaf for what happened during the game, and a lot of players have been kind of criticizing him publicly today, and it's been trending around on Bears Twitter that it looks like he's losing the locker room. And I mean, this guy should be saying, instead of saying like we need to be better next time and stuff like that, he's just saying like, this is on the execution of the players. And the thing is, it's like head coaches, like the good head coaches, they take accountability, right? So like Dan Campbell in Detroit, he likes to go for it a lot on fourth down, and obviously it doesn't work out sometimes, but after the game, like during his press conference, he'll say like, that's on me, like I'll work on it. Um, Matt LaFleur for everything that he does in Green Bay, I think the Packers always have an opportunity with LaFleur as a coach. Like, and you can say what you want about Jordan Love. Some people think he's really good. Some people don't think he's as good, but it seems like the Packers always have an opportunity, and it might be more because of Matt LaFleur than Jordan Love. And then finally, like Sean McVay, it seems like the Rams always have a chance. Even with all the injuries, the Rams still somehow managed to win. And then, like, example was, last week against Minnesota, they still have a couple key offensive linemen that were out, and they were able to beat the Minnesota Vikings. So it's just crazy to me. And then this transitioning into my second topic, which is Cole Kmet had a press conference today, and they were asking him, you know, about Tyreek Stevenson's situation. And he was saying that Stevenson basically apologized to everyone. He was saying that, this was totally unacceptable and it shouldn't happen again. And Cole was talking about how, the players really appreciate him for doing that, and it could be a lesson for everyone going forward. But he did mention something that, he was saying during the week and practices, Cole Kmet was saying that some guys were in quotes kind of laying off. And he goes into detail about what he meant by that. He was basically saying like, for example, are you doing your 6 reps, or are you doing 5 and getting out of there? Or are you, going to the jug machine after practice? Or are you just, half-assing everything? And he was saying that he wasn't saying who, he wasn't calling out any names or anything like that, but he was saying that some guys, were not being serious during practice, and it showed during the game. And he was saying, if you don't respect the game, that the game is going to come back to haunt you. And that's exactly what happened with the Bears. It came back to haunt them at the end. And like Joe mentioned, we didn't deserve to win this game, and the Bears played like pretty bad 3 quarters. But at the end of the day, it's like Cole was mentioning, sometimes it's not other players or coaches' responsibility to tell you what to do and what not to do. A lot of it is self, self accountability to be able to own up to your mistakes and to work and to really dedicate yourself to being better. And it looks like a lot of players, coaches, they don't seem to want to get better. They don't seem to want to learn from them from their mistakes. And you could go and point at Shane Waldron for not for calling some questionable plays. You could point at, whoever you want to point at. Caleb Williams didn't play well for 3 quarters, but at the end of the day, I think one of the main problems is definitely Matt Eberflus. Which and then if this brings me to my last point is I'm not selling any of my stock on Caleb Williams, and I was watching a video of Big Cat talking about this today, and I agree with him in what he was talking about. He was basically saying, Caleb Williams in the fourth quarter, he did what you want, what a franchise quarterback is supposed to do, and that's to put the team in position to win. And the Bears were down, and all this stuff can we could talk about that happened during the game in the early stages of the game. But at the end, when we needed Caleb Williams, he was throwing, beautiful passes to DJ Moore and getting hit under pressure to get a first down. He was throwing that sidearm pass for another first down. He was making plays, throwing Keenan Allen open and stuff like that. And it's just it's tough because I know Caleb Williams really wanted to win this game. It was his homecoming game. There's probably a lot of his family and friends there. And we all saw that video of him on the sideline after the Hail Mary. He was really upset. And it's unfortunate, but I think this game was a wake-up call for Bears fans, for Ryan Poles, for everyone to just realize that this coaching staff isn't it. They're not a good coaching staff, and it's just not going to get better with Eberflus as head coach. And I don't know. I don't know. There's gonna be some people that disagree and think that Eberflus he's a good defensive coordinator or he calls the defense well, but we need him to be more, and he just hasn't been that. So I'll toss it over to you, Eli, and your thoughts during the game.
Yeah, it's just so tough because you bring up a lot of great points when it comes to kind of pointing out the positive things, although there were few in this matchup. I totally agree that Caleb Williams looked like a franchise quarterback there in the fourth quarter. He was there and made the plays in crunch time when you needed him to, and should have had what was two drives to take the lead there, and then just some questionable play calls as we've been kind of used to from Waldron. But it's so tough to kind of think about any of that when it's just a constant week in week out thing to where you're left wondering is all of the good things that we're doing going to be overshadowed by our coaching staff. And for successful teams in the NFL to be successful, a lot of that comes from up top, and that comes from the coaching staff and putting their players into positions to succeed. Whether or not the players execute what it is that you want them to do, I think kind of is irrelevant. In some instances, like for example, the Tyreek situation, you know, that's to me, it is a player thing, but at the same time, you as a head coach have to be aware of who your personnel is and whether or not, when it comes to situations like that, are they ready? Are they supposed to be on the field in these crucial moments? Are they in the right headspace? Do they have the right maturity to be out there on the field in those crucial moments? And more times often than not, the answer has been no. And Matt Eberflus has just not had this team prepared when it comes to being in these situations. I think this year it's been better when it comes to being behind and kind of being in those positions to go and win the game. But again, more times often than not, under Matt Eberflus, this team, when behind, has not been able to close out the win, whether or not it's coming back from a large deficit or a game like that to where we scored and we took the lead and had a chance to close it out. Under Matt Eberflus, it just has not been there. We have not been able to get these wins that, you know, uh, I hate to say that teams don't deserve to win. And I totally get where you guys are coming from. I think the Bears played awful. I think the better team on Sunday was the Washington Commanders, and they did everything that they were supposed to uh, in at the times that it mattered. But at the same time, I think the Bears had a chance to win that game, and it should have been somewhat of an easy win. Coming up into this week, all you hear about is the Commanders' offense being so great, and we went out there for 3 quarters and we showed it. We showed that this is how you beat this team. This is how you defend everything that this team has done well, and it just comes down to not having your personnel ready when it comes to those crucial moments. So I'm with you on the Matt Eberflus experiment. I think the time for him to prove what he can be is done and gone. I think if if I were the GM, I would have cut bait in January. I think we saw enough in the previous 2 years to kind of see what he provides as a head coach. And I agree, as a defensive coordinator, which he is not. If he were, you know, this is a simple little mishap that we're gonna gather ourselves and get ready for next week. The defense will recover, that kind of thing. But that's not his position. He's the head coach. Um, you're in a crucial moment there, and you give up 13 yards to Terry McLaurin. Where's the defense there? Why are you rushing things? Why you have three timeouts? Call a timeout, get your defense ready, and listen to your personnel. You have several veterans on this team. I think it was Kevin Byard that came out and said, um, in that situation, I would have liked to have played press coverage. Why are we giving up this prevent defense, which don't even get me started on prevent defense because more times often than not, it's just a free chunk play no matter who you're playing. They're going to get yardage and get themselves into a better position to kick a field goal or score or throw a Hail Mary like we saw when we played the Commanders, but uh, listen to your personnel, and that's something that Matt Eberflus just has not done. I think he needs to take a page out of Shane Waldron's book, listen to his personnel on the defensive side of the football, and see what your offensive players have to say in that position. Just listen to everybody around you rather than having a system and telling everyone basically to shut up and run it. I think that just does not work in the National Football League. You have to be willing to see what your personnel wants to do. Kevin Byard's been across the league, so he knows defense pretty well, and he's a respected NFL member, so he's been around the block. Montez Sweat's been on two teams. See what he wants to do in that situation. I know he was uh, injured a bit on that play. I don't think he was ruled out of the game, so um, maybe that's something that Montez Sweat wanted to be on the field for on that final play. And there's so many storylines with this that you can just talk about it all day. But another interesting thing on that final play is, when has it ever been a good idea to rush only three on a Hail Mary play? And again, there was the holding and everything like that, but and several people have said it. The officials are just not going to call holding in that situation, a major stakes moment of the game. It's just not going to happen. Um, but that's a crappy thing, which, because we all agree that there were several penalties there that should have been called, but I'm sure there were several penalties that should have been called on us against Washington as well. So you just can't really play the officiating card there, as much as you hate to say it. But my overall point is that as a defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, I think, has done a great job, and for the most part, he's had this defense ready to go. But as a head coach, he has neglected the other two aspects of football when it comes to the offense and special teams. It just has not been there. So uh, I am officially out on the Matt Eberflus experiment. I think they should have cut bait in January, as I kind of mentioned. But we're again in this cycle to where we're doubting our head coaching staff in the first year of a rookie quarterback. So rinse and repeat, as we've done this for the past three quarterbacks now. It sucks to say because you don't want to potentially, and again, this is a conversation we had with Justin Fields as well. You don't want to potentially hinder his development with Caleb Williams if you are to get rid of Matt Eberflus, but at the same time, I think he is more talented than the last two quarterbacks we've had. So I think he's able to overcome that going into this offseason. And I hate that we're talking about the offseason because there still is life in this season. And I don't want to necessarily give up on it already, but um, you've got to think going into next offseason, they take a strong look at what this team looks like at the end of the year and whether or not Matt Eberflus is the answer moving forward. But uh, do you guys have anything else when it comes to this matchup? Anything that stood out to you? Joe, I'll go with you.
Uh, I have a question for you guys. So, well, first, do you know how the the defenders that were back there defending the Hail Mary? You know the average height of everybody back there?
I could not tell you.
You
I'm
know,
interested to hear though.
It's everybody back there was no one back there was taller than 6 foot. Everyone was 5'11" or shorter. So my question is, would you have liked to see, Rome out there or someone on offense, an offensive player out there defending the play? I bring up Rome because he's really good at high pointing balls and knock down and catch 50-50 balls. Like we've seen that with other teams before. I mean, it's a little bit different situation, but you guys remember the Dolphins and Patriots game? I think that was 2018, where the Dolphins are in like a pitch play. They had uh Gronk back there and defending the goal line. I mean, he failed, and he technically did, but they had an offensive guy out there instead of having everybody on defense out there. So would you guys have liked to see somebody that's taller that was back there who maybe knocked down the ball and not have actually knock down the ball or like catch the ball instead of it getting tipped back to Noah Brown?
Yeah, I definitely would. I would have, whoever's our tallest wide receiver was probably Rome, like you mentioned. And then I'm pretty sure Terrell Smith is pretty tall. I don't know his height. If you guys could correct me, but I'm pretty sure he's over 6 foot. And then yeah, like guys, like I was confused. Like, why was Josh Blackwell there in there? He's probably our shortest, DB. That whole play didn't make sense. But yeah, I would definitely have someone like Rome in there for sure.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. Terrell Smith is just at 6 foot, so it definitely couldn't hurt to have him out there. But I agree completely that, you know, get Roma Dunze out there, get Keenan Allen. I know he's old and he's had some injury history, but put players on the field that you think are capable of whether or not it's catching the ball or knocking it down, get that size in there. Another guy, and we just brought up Gronk, so maybe this wouldn't have been the greatest idea, but I believe Cole Kmet is 6'6" or 6'7", and that's a big body guy that can get up there. So maybe that's someone you throw out there. But yeah, that's definitely another aspect of this whole personnel usage discussion that we've had all season. Not recognizing who puts you in the best advantage to win games. So I like that you brought that up, Joe.
And then I also wanted to bring up the defensive line on that final play too, because you guys have been talking about it. So Dexter was out there, but Booker and Daryl Taylor were not, and obviously Montez Sweat was not. I think you said he wasn't ruled out at that point. I think he was ruled out at that point from his injury. So, but you guys still had Booker or Taylor out there, or or even both. Like, just use better those two guys because they're. I mean, Taylor's been playing really good all year. He can get pressure on Jaden Daniels, and maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't even really know who they had out there. Um, like I saw the numbers, but I don't know who they are exactly. Dexter's 99 though, right? Because that was the number. That was the number in the middle of the field that I
Yeah.
saw.
And
Okay,
then
so it was definitely Dexter out there. Um, and then
55
yeah,
was
I just
Jacob Martin. He was on
Nathan
there.
Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense why I don't know Martin's number because it's his first game. Um, so I don't feel too bad about that. But yeah, they just the players they had out there didn't make sense. Watching the quarterback and like you guys said, the spy. He wasn't. So he technically wasn't spying the quarterback. What he was doing was keeping track of the running back. But like people have said this, why are you keeping track of the running back? He's not gonna break freaking 70 yards and score the touchdown. Just drop another guy back there or 4-man rush. Don't 3-man rush it.
And you know what? To me, if if Jaden Daniels was to break off a 70-yard touchdown run, I would have been a lot less mad than the Hail Mary. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, obviously, if the guy breaks off for a 70-yard touchdown run and nobody tackles him, we're all still gonna be mad. But in that situation, it's not the smart decision to take off and run with the football. Like I'm sure the Washington sideline would have been screaming at him to just go back and throw the ball, that kind of thing, because more times often than not, you're probably going to get tackled if you take off on a 70-yard scramble to win the game rather than the Hail Mary. So uh, I like that you brought that up, Joe. And another thing is that if the formation that you have on the last play of the game to potentially win or lose the game doesn't make sense, you know how many timeouts you had? Three. Take one. Figure out what you're doing. I think it was Jalen Johnson that came out and said, I we were in the right position, but everything happened so fast. And let me stop you right there. Nothing should happen so fast in the final play of the game. take the time out, talk with your personnel on what you need to do, what maybe every player on the defense, what they see from the offense. That's another thing. Let the offense go out there, see how they line up, see what their game plan is, take the time out, get the formation right, and that kind of thing, and make sure everybody on the defense is on the same page on what to do. And obviously that wasn't the case. Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. I'm glad you brought up the timeouts. I don't know if we said this earlier, but they could have also used a timeout on the play before to make sure that 13 yards didn't happen. I mean, you could have used your timeouts in two places to help you win this game that you, like me and Isaac have said, you didn't really deserve to win. You said you disagree with that, but still, either way, you look at it. You could have used those timeouts in those critical moments. There's no point keeping the timeouts. You can't use them. You don't. They don't carry over to the next week. You don't get 6 timeouts to start the game. Use your 3 timeouts. Use just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Isaac. Go ahead.
and I was just gonna say, like, when you're really looking at Matt Eberflus as a head coach, like, he doesn't know how to call challenges. He doesn't know how to use his timeouts. He can't hold a lead. We beat up on the bad teams, sure, but we lose to the good teams, and then those teams that are kind of even with us, like, okay, maybe they can win, maybe we can win. We always lose those games. So, what's the point of having him as a head coach? He has a 3-17 record away. Like, we don't win away games. I don't like at this point, like, seeing the Bears wear their white jerseys scares me because I haven't seen the Bears win too many games wearing their white jerseys recently. And it's just crazy to me how there's some people that still believe that Matt Eberflus should be the head coach. And at this point, it's like, everyone's saying, oh, we should just fire Shane Waldron and hire another offensive coordinator. But I don't think that's gonna help too much because, Waldron had his own problems. But if we fire Eberflus and we hire an offensive-minded head coach like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick, then that kills two birds with one stone because not only are we, fixing the head coaching problem, but the head coach is probably gonna also be the play caller. Waldron, maybe he'll step down as the offensive play caller, and then we'll give it to the head coach, whether it's Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, or someone else. And then hopefully it's better. But it's crazy because, like, the Bears always had the problem was always with the quarterback. Like, we could never get the quarterback right. And, like, we finally get the quarterback right, and now we don't get the head coach right. And but yeah, I'll toss it back to you, Eli.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It seems like every time the Bears figure out something positive, there's one missing piece that's just the detriment to those positives on this team that always outweigh uh, the positive. I don't know how to describe it, and I don't know what they can do to fix it aside from trying to wipe the slate clean and just getting the same staff on the same page as everybody else. Yeah, and that's seems easier said than done. But again, I don't know how you kind of go about that. But moving forward, I am of the mindset, kind of with you, Isaac. If the Bears are in a road game to where it's kind of a, well, I think we can pull out this win kind of game, or, well, this should be a tough test, but I think we can count on Chicago to win it. I am of the mindset that we are going to lose those games just simply because I don't think it's a lack of talent on this squad. I think it boils down to, okay, well, if it's a toss up, take the better head coach, and more times often than not, as we've kind of stated throughout this episode, that is not Matt Eberflus. And when it is Matt Eberflus, you're going up against people like the Panthers and all these other bad teams that we've beat up on in the last few years. So it's been proven time and time again that when a game comes down to a coaching battle, that's a battle that the Bears are going to lose. And successful organizations, they avoid that because they hire the right guy and they go through the process of finding out what is it that this head coach is good at, what is he bad at, and if he's bad at something, can he hire the right coordinator to kind of make up for his misgivings. And again, more times often than not, that's not what the Bears have done. And again, you're just going to have to wipe the slate clean, in my opinion, because we can't keep doing this makeshift puzzle of coordinators and switching between play callers and doing this and doing that to kind of fit the puzzle piece together and shove a square peg into a circle hole. That's what Chicago's been known for the last few years, and I could argue the last few decades even. But overall, just an embarrassing loss to a team that I will give credit to the Commanders because I think that defense, personally, I think it came to play. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. There for the first 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters or so. Uh, the defensive line was just able to get more pressure than I expected them to. The offensive line for the Bears looked like it did in the first 3 to 4 weeks, which was again just surprising to me because going leading into this week, we had thought that this Commanders D line was pretty beat up, and all they had was Deron Payne and a few other members on that defensive line, but they came to play, and this just feels like a team that could maybe make a run because if they can get a few more of these wins against opponents that most assumed you know, I think most of us assumed that the Bears were going to win that game, and they should have uh, maybe have won it pretty handily. But they came to play where the Bears didn't on you know every aspect of football. Uh, where the Commanders kind of did, at least they did enough to win the game, where the Bears didn't. So credit to the Commanders at the very least. I think they are overperforming what their roster shows to the entire league. So good for them. But yeah, just a tough loss. So do you guys have anything else to add with this Commanders matchup or anything with the Bears moving forward?
I do want to ask you guys one question, and I don't know why it bothered me so much, but the thing with Tyreek Stevenson, just watching that video after, like, already really down about the game, about how the outcome, was came to be, and to see Stevenson, even Stevenson was saying like, "Oh, I was just, talking back to Bears fans, like, celebrating with them." I don't even know if that's true. I really don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure he was, talking crap with the Commanders fans, but if that was, regardless, I've never seen a professional athlete just with his back behind when the play was starting. Like, it's one thing to do that when the play hasn't started yet, but it's another thing to do it when it's already in play. And I want to ask you guys this. Would you, if you were the head coach, would you bench or punish Tyreek Stevenson? And punish meaning, like, I don't know, maybe the team finds him, or you just, like, something, but I want to get your guys' opinion on that. And I can start with you, Joe. You're on mute.
Um, I think there should be punishment. I don't know if there will be. I don't really know. Like, I mean, the best punishment that I've heard is like maybe you sit Stevenson for like the first couple of drives and play Terrell Smith next week. You don't send him for the whole game, but he you teach him a lesson by doing that. Now, I don't know if Flus would do that. Uh, it seemed like the kind of guy to do that. I don't know. Um, I don't really trust that they're gonna punish Tyler Stevenson. Um, I don't think you can fine him. He didn't do anything finable. Um, technically, I mean, maybe taunting. Taunting is finable, but that's only if a referee throws a flag, and there was no flag because they weren't. He wasn't taunting the Commanders. He was taunting the fans, which literally I've never seen. Like you said, I've never seen a professional athlete do that. Like, I don't understand what you're thinking. Um, but yeah, think he'll. I don't think he'll get fined. Maybe a punishment, but I just don't. I don't know if I see it. Per se. What about you, Eli?
Yeah, it is tough because I completely agree with you, Joe. If it were any other head coach, I would say, yeah, it's probably an automatic benching, and they're going to put someone else in his spot to kind of teach him a lesson, kind of thing. But Matt Eberflus is a guy that we've seen doesn't typically make those adjustments that are needed, and I think that's one of them. I think I am of the mindset that probably bench him per se in favor of Smith. Uh, just to kind of throw it back to when those guys were drafted, people forget, but that was a battle in training camp between those two guys. And then Terrell Smith, I think, was ahead of Stevenson for a while, and then Smith got injured, in training camp to where Stevenson took those first team reps from Smith. So I don't think Stevenson's a bad corner by any means. I think he's physical and sometimes he'll let up a big play just because of he's that up and personal guy and he'll let someone get behind him. But Smith is a good corner as well. So I think this is a week that you can kind of afford to possibly bench Tyreek, but I agree that it won't be for the entire game. I think if Smith goes out there and struggles, then Tyreek can slide back in there. But I think it would do some good for him to kind of have that message out there that if you're not going to be 100% ready to go and your maturity there out on the field is not ready 100%, then you're not going to be the starter. So, uh, it's tough to balance that between okay, well, if am I benched or am I just out for a few plays kind of thing? And I don't know how well that would benefit Tyreek. I don't know if this is a player to where he genuinely feels regret for what he did or if that's just kind of his attitude. It's hard to tell with him. I think Tyreek's a good player, but I don't necessarily know what kind of player he is in the headspace kind of realm. So uh, if it were me, I'd bench Tyreek in favor of Smith and just give Smith the starting reps and filter in Tyreek if needed throughout next week. But that's my answer to that.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys. Like it's kind of hard to bench a player like Stevenson in this situation, and Matt Eberflus is that kind of coach that he won't probably bench him. But I was really thinking about this, and I do think that the Bears actually might do this. And when you are not the best student or something happens and you have that parent teacher conference in high school, I kind of think like just a part of me kind of feels like they're gonna do that with him. Like it's gonna be a meeting with just Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, and Tyreek Stevenson, and then maybe some other Bears coaching staff members. Just to sit him down, say, hey man, like, we're not upset at you, like we're not gonna do anything, but we do want to talk to you about this because you and I both know that this behavior is unacceptable, and then they'll probably get into a little bit of the details about it, and then just say like, hopefully this doesn't happen again, but we just want to make sure that you're good mentally. Like I know that because I'm pretty sure Stevenson probably received some really hateful messages on social media, and it could get to a player mentally, and I think benching him, like, when I was first thinking about it, like, oh yeah, we definitely have to bench him, but I think that would just add to his already like the mental battle that you have when you have a really bad play like that and you really regret it because like you said, Eli, like we don't know if he truly regrets it, but I'm pretty sure like as a professional athlete, especially when it's not just a individual sport, it's a team sport. So you let down not only all your teammates, but your coaches and your fans, and it just probably gets to him mentally. So I think they're gonna have a meeting like that probably. Um, like I said, like it's probably like a player by player situation. Like some players maybe they deserve to get benched. Some players maybe it's better to just have a conversation with them. But I mean, I'm glad that I got a different insight from you guys as well. But was there anything else you guys wanted to mention about from this?
Uh, there's uh, two more things I want to throw out right now. So first one is there's this rhetoric that Danny Daniels played a lot better than Caleb Williams. If you watch the game, it's not really true. If you look at the stats, yeah, the stats will tell you that he played better. He did, but he didn't play so much better than Caleb Williams. I mean, Jaden Daniels, if you take away that Hail Mary touchdown, he had 200 and 74 yards passing with uh being 20 for 37 with and um six or and eight rushes for 52 yards. With the Hail Mary, that's 326 passing and a touchdown, 21 for 38. Now Caleb obviously didn't do great passing the ball. Uh the offensive line let him down and he wasn't really seeing the field well for most of the game. So yeah, he in passing terms did play better than Jaden Daniels did play better than Caleb Williams, but I don't think he played so much as better as everyone is saying on social media. Um, and the other thing I want to ask is the Bears didn't travel Jalen Johnson with uh, Terry McLaurin all game, which they never do because this scheme. But after Flus saw a 61-yard bomb in the first quarter that Stevenson lit up to McLaurin, why wouldn't you make changes? Like, I don't understand why like they wouldn't put their best cornerback on the team's best receiver, especially when McLaurin's kind of their only receiver. I mean, Noah Brown caught the touchdown. He's been decent this year, but I think if you put Stevenson on Noah Brown, you kind of shut that down too. So like, I don't understand it. So if either of you have thoughts on those two things,
Yeah, it is curious to me that most teams, I won't say most teams because I don't know for a fact if this is true or not, but I would say it is a good idea to put your best corner on a team's best receiver. Um, and I think it's on a game by game basis, but I do agree that this is a game where it should have happened because if you look at all these receiving threats, as you kind of mentioned, Joe, Terry McLaurin had 5 receptions for 125 yards, a lot of that coming from that 61-yard bomb that you mentioned. And again, going back to basically the point you made, you see that you're kind of in the mode of, at least most people I think would be, let's put our best corner on their best receiver and kind of lock down that aspect of their offense because after McLaurin, there were no other receivers over 80 yards. Zach Ertz was their next leading target at 77 yards on 7 receptions, so 11 yards per reception there. And then Noah Brown at 73 yards, where again, the majority of those yards came from the Hail Mary. So uh, going back to your overall point with Jaden Daniels, sure, he had passing yards, but again, a lot of that came from the Hail Mary. A lot of that came from the bomb over Tyreek. But for the most part, the Bears did limit him on the ground, and this was one of his worst games in terms of accuracy. I think he had like a 55.3% completion percentage, to where that's been a talking point for him this season. He's had a very high completion rate, and the Bears kind of shut that down. I think the next worst, or maybe even, was in that Buccaneers game. So the Bucks and the Bears have kind of figured out how to stall that Commanders offense. It just was a crucial moment in which we gave up, but uh, I don't think Jaden Daniels played a bad game, but I don't think he necessarily outplayed Caleb Williams. I think this was just a game in which two defenses were duking it out, and the Bears stood tall in the red zone for the entire game, and both quarterbacks just kind of struggled throughout. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and then just to add, I agree, like Jaden Daniels didn't have the best game either. He did play better than Caleb Williams, but it wasn't by a wide margin like some people were saying on social media. And the thing about with Jalen Johnson not being on Terry McLaurin, it's stuff like that, where you look at it and you're saying to yourself, why is this guy the head coach? He's still, it's a accumulation of a bunch of different factors that have been they somehow were all shown this game. Like there's things, in one game, and there's other aspects of Matt Eberflus in other games. Like, in the Texans, it was the play the challenges, and then in one another game it's timeouts. And but in this game, pretty much everything happened during this game. Like where we're like, how did this happen? Why didn't he call this? Why wasn't there any adjustments? And then the Bears were supposed to be a team that are really good on making adjustments, and it didn't happen today. And we didn't mention this, but the Bears did have a bye week before this game, so they had ample time to really prepare for this matchup, and it just looked so like the Bears looked flat when they came out, and they usually when they start the game, it hasn't been the best, but again, like the Bears only scored 10 points in the first quarter the whole season, like combined. Like it was one game they scored a touchdown, it was just 7 points, and another game they scored a field goal, which was 3 points. But stuff like this, it's like we have no chance of making the playoffs, or even if we do make the playoffs, then we're probably going to be like first round exits because we just can't execute on the minor details. We don't have, stuff that's going for us that's going to give us the edge over tougher opponents, and it's sad, but it's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and you're not in a division to where you can afford these costly mistakes. You know, maybe in the years past, if this Bears team had played maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we could afford a game like this. But right now, we're dead last in the NFC North, and every other team is kind of still on that train. I know Minnesota's kind of faltered a little bit, but uh, we've fallen. So we're in last place right now, and we're slowly running out of games we can afford to lose to potentially maybe make a playoff push. Um, but to kind of close things out, I wanted to ask you guys just briefly. We've talked a lot about the negative, and there was a lot of it, and it deserved to be talked about 100%. But I wanted to get just a quick little, maybe positive takeaways that you guys might have had from this matchup. I'll say one to start, and then I'll go to you, Isaac. I think it was positive that we saw DeAndre Swift still getting involved in this offense. 100 just near, I think it was 129 on the ground. Uh, so that was a positive gain from this matchup that had that long touchdown run. It's a good sign of what this offense can be. We've just got to get some consistency. So mine is DeAndre Swift. Isaac, did you have a positive takeaway, if any? And if there isn't, then I completely understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of positive takeaways to take from this game, but mine would definitely be Caleb Williams improving towards the end of the game, especially in the fourth quarter, because as bad as the game as he had, I think he only had like 30 something passing yards heading into the fourth. He really picked things up at the end, and it made me really happy because out of all the negative stuff that happened, at least I'm still confident in my quarterback. So I'll definitely give it to Caleb Williams for this one. And I'll toss it over to you, Joe.
I mean, you guys mentioned both things I was going to mention. Uh, DeAndre Swift looked electric. Uh, that 56-yard touchdown run was the reason the Bears were even in the game. He's showing that even with a bad offensive line, like they got hurt. A bunch of their starters got hurt this week during the game. Uh, he can still break off those electrifying runs. He also had a crazy hurdle this week. So that was nice to see. It's nice to see that Swift, after the first 3 weeks where he was terrible, has found his footing. Um, and maybe he's making me eat my words on me saying he's not a good running back. Um, but yeah, as Isaac mentioned too, the fact that Caleb Williams showed in crunch time that he could be a quarterback that plays good even after not playing good most of the game was positive for me too.
Yeah, I like it. I think one more thing that I kind of saw someone make a clip on. I can't remember who it was, but uh, they did say that Darnell Wright had a better game than he has in the past, and I think uh, this bye week kind of helped him get healthy. Some people were kind of hinting that maybe he had been playing through injury and it kind of been limiting him a bit. He had a better game at right tackle, so that's another thing to hopefully make this Bears offense more consistent moving forward. And then we also received news that Braxton Jones, his injury was not super serious. So I believe he's on a week to week basis. So, we saw that's another negative. I hate to go back to the negative, but we saw Karan Amagaji fill in place of Braxton Jones, and it was not pretty on most reps that he had. I think on that big run, he did have a good block for DeAndre Swift. So,
Yeah, yeah, the stealing block that gave him the touchdown, but other than
yeah,
that, he did not play good.
yeah. So, and that's to be expected from a guy that's coming out of Yale, a rookie, just a raw prospect. He's going to have flashes here and there, but more bad than good. But Braxton Jones seems to be on a week to week basis. So that's, not great news, but it's better than what could have been because we don't want to move forward with Karan at starting left tackle. And not to get too deep into it, but Matt Pryor, I think, would probably slide over to left tackle if he wasn't good to go, in my opinion. But again, we'll save that for another day. But do you guys
Um,
have anything else to add? Yeah.
one more thing. I think I don't quote me on this. I might be wrong. I I heard that Bill Murray might have tore his pec, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Because there was no article on it, but uh it was either Adam Johns or Adam Hogue said they think he tore his pec on Hogan Johns today. So I don't know if that's the actual diagnosis, but if so, that means his year is over.
Yeah, that would absolutely not be good news. But uh, another aspect to this is you would think at some point either this week or next week. Maybe Ryan Bates will be back. Presumably, hopefully he would take over for Coleman Shelton, but if we're going to start being thin at the guard position, maybe Bates can slide in there too.
Also, I don't know how you're going to get all the space, roster space, but you can also activate Larry Borum and have him play, which is something that doesn't make like he could have activated him over Travis Homer this week. I know, I mean, he practiced all week. That doesn't mean he's exactly like ready to play a game, but like they could have had him in ready and played him over Toronto Magaji at left tackle when Braxton went down.
Yeah, we keep finding more coaching malpractice as we go throughout this episode. But you know, there's so many things we could keep talking about, but I think it's best if we just leave it at that. Unless you guys have anything else to mention before we head on out of here. All right, be sure to go like our shorts, like us on Twitter, follow along everywhere you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Keep it tuned with us, and from all of us here on the Bear Down Buzz podcast. We will see you on Friday as we preview the Arizona Cardinals matchup against the Chicago Bears, and hopefully the Bears can get back on track. But as of now, they fall to 4-3, and again, hopefully they can improve to 5-3 as they travel to Arizona next week. But once again, this is the Bear Down Buzz podcast. We will see you next episode.